It's a duel of dynasties as polls close in the Philippines. Midterm elections will have huge implications, not just for the leading ruling families, but also for the Philippines' U.S.-China relationship. But will the vote matter to the Filipino people, or is it only set to embolden or disempower the most powerful? I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's newsmaker is the Philippines. Well, democracies are supposed to revolve around elections to vote for what is in the best interest of voters themselves. But by most analyses, this midterm election in the Philippines is about defending or condemning one of two political family dynasties. The Marcoses and the Dutertes fell out spectacularly after they were voted into power on a unity platform in 2022. Shortly after, it seemed revenge became the order of the day. With former Vice President Sara Duterte already impeached, a conviction would hinge on a Senate trial, and Filipinos are counting the votes for those very senators right now. Here's a look.
Just 3 years ago, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Vice President Sara Duterte stormed to power on a unity ticket, bonding two of the Philippines' most powerful dynasties. But that alliance has collapsed. Today, the former allies are locked in a struggle for control of the Senate and their own political survival. Duterte, once seen as Marcos's heir apparent, now faces a political reckoning. In July, she's set to stand trial in the Senate, impeached by her former allies. A conviction would bar her from public office for life, extinguishing any hope of a presidential run in 2028.
What we are witnessing is a systematic demolition job against political opponents that once dared to put the country first, even if it meant going against the most powerful interests in our homeland.
Marcos, for his part, is determined to tighten his grip. A two-thirds Senate majority would allow him to pass constitutional reforms, protect himself from future legal challenges, and potentially secure a legacy strong enough to sway the next presidential vote. At stake are 12 of 24 Senate seats, enough to tip the balance of power. The Marcos camp is fielding celebrities, ex-generals, and political loyalists. The Dutertes are backing hardliners and firebrands. Also on the Senate slate is Pastor Apollo Quiboloy, wanted by the FBI on sex trafficking charges. Backed by the Dutertes, he's running from prison to test public tolerance and legal loopholes. But the Senate race is about more than dynastic warfare. Foreign policy is front and center. In recent months, Chinese vessels have rammed Philippine ships, blocked resupply missions, and escalated tensions in the South China Sea. In response, President Marcos has deepened security ties with Washington, expanding the annual Balikatan drills and granting US forces greater access to Philippine bases, a move Beijing calls provocative.
Some individuals in the Philippines, driven by selfish interests, are colluding with external forces such as the United States to stir up trouble and undermine the peace and stability in the South China Sea. They also attempt to play with fire on the Taiwan question. We strongly urge the Philippines to cease its infringements and provocations and stop offending China's core interests in any form.
As diplomatic tensions flare at sea, the battle has also gone digital. Both camps deployed troll armies, bot farms, and AI-generated deepfakes to sway voters online, making this midterm as much about influence operations as it is about ballots. But for most voters, power struggles and foreign drama pale next to daily realities.
They must have platforms to address the real problems in our country, like poverty, unemployment, and declining peace and order situation.
With millions of votes being cast, the Philippines isn't just choosing senators, it's choosing sides between political dynasties, foreign superpowers, and the possibility of real change.
Well, joining me now to debate just how much hinges on the outcome of this election are from Manila, Vice President of the Asian Century Philippine Strategic Studies Institute and columnist for the Manila Times, Ana Malindoy, And also from the Philippines capital, Maria Ella Atienza is a political science professor from the University of the Philippines. Thanks both so much for being with me. You know what? I first want to establish really the average voter's state of mind in this vote, if we can do that. Anna, I'll start with you. Just how much is this election about the issues involved, the economy, et cetera, and how much is about preserving kind of the relevance and the power of one of these two families?
I think at this time around, with this midterm election that actually just closed at around 7 p.m. Manila time, I think when you talk about relevance on or voting based on issues, I think that is not that much reflected. This midterm election, really, the way I see it from a very pragmatic perspective and from a realistic perspective, this is really like a referendum of between the two biggest political families that are now having a political feud between the Dutertes and the Marcos Romualdez faction. So if you really look at that and really look at the campaign that happened, it's more of there are other candidates that are running, not necessarily in the lower level and even at the senatorial level. But if you really look at the framing and in terms of how the people are putting where they are in terms of camp, it's really the prominence really between the Dutertes and as against to the Marcoses or the Romualdez faction. And so when you talk about voting in terms of preference, I think this will be the defining line. If it's either they're voting for the side of the Duterte through the PDP Laban candidates, or on the other side, the Marcos Romualdez faction, which is the Alianza. But of course, there are other prominent certain figures that came out in the surveys thus far, like two candidates, I think, from the Liberal Party that is now also coming out in terms of
before you go
voting.
too far, though, I'd like to look a little bit about what you said, because it's so interesting that you feel the issues are less relevant in this election because the people feel so invested in what is happening to these two political dynasties and which side they find themselves on. You would think that if that is what's at play here, voters would feel a little more disaffected. You know, what's the point of my vote if it's only about the preservation or non-preservation of these families involved? But that's not the case in the Philippines, Anna, from what I understand, what you're saying.
From that's my analysis of this the current ongoing the midterm election that happened. I mean, I'm not saying that totally the voters would only consider the two. I mean, the two political families that are, having this political feud. But of course, other relevant issues would come in. Like, for example, at the moment, there are a lot of issues that is, the country is facing. You have there are issues and allegation of massive corruption and budget. Yeah, on all of these things. I think these are consideration, but at the end of the day, really, if you really look at politically and realistically what's going on in the country and what happened during the election and even the campaign period, it's really these two prominent families are more the basis of how people will vote, and how they're gonna have this, voting preference.
Let me ask Ella if you feel the same, because you've actually said there's been too much emphasis and kind of fascination on the Marcoses and the Dutertes by the media, which you feel has pushed, the polarization of Filipinos.
Yeah, I think, of course, the dominant narrative in media is that the midterm elections is a fight between the two big families in the Philippines. For some voters, particularly those that are really invested in both sides, both camps, some are pro Marcos, some are pro Duterte. They are voting strategically. But if you look at what are important for people, when you look at survey results, what are the important issues for the Filipino people, particularly those at the lower income levels, they would still consider the economy, the inflation, the prices of goods, particularly rice, as very important. issues. So, in a sense, when we look at Filipino voters, every election, yes, definitely dominant. We have this dominant political parties, and the this fight between the two biggest families is the symptom of the dominance of this fat or
Yeah.
obese dynasties in the Philippines. They hijack the real issues that are important for many people. And for some people who are um, already jaded with Philippine elections, they will often say, well, it depends on the family or the politician who sits, but politicians are the same. They keep promising, but they do not deliver.
Right. But so okay, well, if we look at then that the fact that the voters are feel themselves somehow, heavily invested in the future of these two families still, tell us, Ella, how vulnerable you think Bongbong Marcos, President Marcos, will be if Sara Duterte's supporters win this election.
Of course, yes. We're battling the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the local government positions, and definitely Sara Duterte and her party PDP Laban have been campaigning for their candidates. They know that their future hinge on the results of the elections. Definitely, if we have a pro Sara Duterte bloc, particularly at the Senate, that will make Bongbong Marcos very vulnerable. Particularly since Sara Duterte is facing an impeachment trial in the Senate after the elections, and if the Senate will be packed by more pro Sara Duterte senatorial candidates or senators, then that means that she will not be convicted. A conviction means that she is not eligible to run for any
Right.
public
But
office.
if she's
And
not
that,
convicted, then if it means she's not convicted, will she straight out seek revenge of some sort? And what form would that take?
yeah, I actually now, by campaigning for her candidates and campaigning against those that prosecuted her or questioned her at the House of Representatives, she's already, in a way, seeking revenge for the family. And I think if she gets many of her candidates in position at the national and local levels, definitely that will be uh, the salvo, the starting salvo for preparations for the next 3 years.
Yeah. So
So she will really make it difficult for Marcos.
let me ask Anna then. I mean, the same question, but to the other extent. So if Marcos's supporters win again, will Sara Duterte definitely be impeached and then convicted by the Senate and then banned from political office? In which case, how would her Duterte supporters in general across the Philippines respond?
Okay, let me answer first. I think I make a comment on your first question. What if the Sara Duterte faction or the PDP Laban, which is supported by the Dutertes, would win majority, especially in the Senate senatorial slate? I think and even the local position, but I think it's more the Senate that is very much the contested at the moment because of the impeachment trial that is upcoming. First and foremost, I think the impact of that to Marcos Jr. administration is it means that there's a declining legitimacy, political legitimacy on the part of Marcos Jr. Second is declining trust, and third, this is a verdict that the people are not anymore supportive of the Marcos Jr. administration. If in any case, majority of the senatoriables that is supported by the Dutertes under the PDP Laban will win in this election. However, if the reverse happen, that would also mean that there is a threat to a greater extent for the vice president to be impeached. Because when you talk about the impeachment trial, it's not, for me, to be very frank and to be very honest about this. In the Philippines, it's not about the merit of the case. This is a political exercise. This is more a political proceeding. So when you talk about the number of votes in the Senate, in terms of number, I think the Marcos administration would have a number, would have the amount of numbers that would probably, I don't know, maybe would probably convict and remove the vice president. But then again, if that will happen, so but for Sara Duterte, I think there are other options that she can take, and there's a pending petition in the Supreme Court as well that Sara Duterte filed with reference to the impeachment, the upcoming impeachment trial in July too. So there are a lot of variables here, and we will see what will happen. But there's also a possibility for the vice president to resign even before the impeachment trial starts. It depends really on the numbers, because if the Marcos administration would have more numbers, it means Sara Duterte's fate is a little bit in danger. But if the PDP Laban will get more numbers, I think there's a possibility that she will fight it out in the impeachment trial, and maybe she will have the number. So that's the way I
Right.
see it.
I mean, so much is riding on this for both Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte. Ella, we had discussed on this program actually before if Duterte's arrest at the ICC could backfire. And it seemed in the lead up to this election that it did manage to build some support for Sara Duterte and against her impeachment. Do you see that as the case? And now do you wonder if Ferdinand or Bongbong Marcos's people wish that they had not allowed Duterte to be arrested?
To a certain extent, there is some impact of Duterte's arrest. There seemed to be, for certain sectors, some sympathy vote or sympathy to the Dutertes. But when we look at the two pro-Duterte senators that are appearing on top of the surveys for senators, these are incumbent senators who have also built a reputation. In the Philippines, you need to be very popular. And it does not depend so much on your programs or ideologies or advocacies, but the two PDP Laban or pro Duterte senatorial candidates are appearing on the top 6 of the surveys for senators, and they have already built a following. So in that sense, it has some impact, but not as big as we were probably expecting when Duterte was arrested.
Okay. I'll tell you what, at this point, I'd actually like to move on to the wider effects of this election and who might at least be more influential in power, according to the family name. Because, well, first of all, in the lead up to this election, there had been some accusations that China was actually interfering politically. Anna, do you feel there were any grounds to that? Because we have to ask ultimately what China would want out of this election, given what the risks are and what's at stake, especially in the South China Sea.
As far as I'm concerned, there were news and there were a statement coming from the Marcos Jr. government saying that, China is trying to interference in the domestic affairs of the country, especially with this midterm election. But as to the evidences, if this some kind of allegation really has some kind of currency, there's no evidence thus far that the National Security Council has, publicly displayed so far. So these are more allegations. But as far as China is concerned, from what I know, and I'm studying, I'm very much into the China studies at this time, and I'm also studying my PhD in Peking University. When it comes to foreign policy, I think China is very strong on what you call non-interference in the domestic affair of any country, not only the Philippines. But I think when you talk about using the China card, the Alianza or the Marcos Jr. Ticket actually used the China card in their campaign and saying that, the other side is are pro-China and we are anti-China. But basically, this happens always every time there is an election in the Philippines. The China issue, because we have a dispute in the South China, always comes out as a card that's being used by some politicians to probably gain votes because, it invokes some kind of sense of nationalism coming from some Filipinos. But at this time, when you talk about allegations, these are allegations, but thus far there were no evidences shown in public. And I think it should be, if there are allegations, it should be be in a proper venue, and I don't think it should be some kind of used in the domestic affairs of the country when you talk about midterm election. Because for me, as far as I'm concerned, what really matters in the midterm election are issues that actually Ella earlier have mentioned, inflation, the
Right.
economic problems that we're facing, corruption, and all of these things. These are the issues that matters and should have been discussed properly in their campaigns. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me ask Ella then, because, yeah, well, first of all, do you agree that, if it's not quite fair to accuse China of any interference because Anna argues there really is no evidence. But then again, others say that, China's interest in this election, in spite of its non-interference policy, is great because the tensions in the South China Sea have been rising. They argue that Beijing has an agenda there that is counter to the Philippines' national interest. So do you think China wants something out of this election? And you can speak as well to the role of the U.S. potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely China's interests, as far as the Philippines is concerned, have been affected by the decisions of the Marcos administration lately, particularly in terms of the South China Sea, but also in banning or closing the offshore gaming corporations that were allowed during the time of former President Rodrigo Duterte. And I think even if we say that China practices the non-interference policy, they would prefer a more friendlier administration that would actually allow China to have their interests actively playing out or positively playing out in the Philippines. The Philippines will be more friendly to China and at the same time less in building alliances with the United States. But I think even if we say South China Sea is foreign policy, that's defense, that's external relations, it has affected the economic interests of fisher folks in areas where there are which are disputed. At the same time, also the offshore gaming corporations in the Philippines have also affected the economic fortunes, both good or bad, among many cities and municipalities hosting these companies. Many of them have closed down and they have impact on the locality. So there are certain impacts of the relationship or things that are going in a way, things that have been favorable for China, and now with more pro-U.S. turn of the U.S. Of the Bongbong Marcos administration, there are impacts on the economy and even the local politics of certain communities.
Yeah, and it is playing, I mean, Anna, you would have to admit it is playing a serious role in the candidate between the candidates right now, and we haven't really mentioned that Bongbong Marcos's own sister had actually, sympathized with Sara Duterte and had criticized the arrest of her father, Rodrigo Duterte, saying that really the Philippines shouldn't have, that Ferdinand Marcos Jr. should not have pressed for the arrest in any way, shape, or form, and she also criticized his pushing for the U.S. military presence in the Philippines. So would you concede, though, that these, as Ella was saying very eloquently, that these larger issues, foreign policy, they do make a difference to the ordinary Filipino voter?
Actually, when you talk about foreign policy, in a way, when you talk about the South China Sea issue, I think when you talk about influence as with reference to the voters, I think it's more about the fact that, that South China Sea is being used really as a card and, in the election. But if you really look at the situation at the moment, let's talk about Amy Marcos being on the side of the Dutertes. I think let's be fair with Senator Amy Marcos in this regard. I think when you talk about the Senate hearing on the arrest of the former president of the ICC, she was pointing very clearly that there's such a thing as a violation of sovereignty of the Philippines and independence, precisely because the Philippines is not anymore, and since March 2019, a member or or a party to the ICC. So in a way, and also there were a lot of violations really, and with reference how the arrest happened, and there was no proper procedure and due process. I think that's where Senator Imee is coming from when you talk about this ICC arrest. And I think when you talk about foreign policy, it has an impact. But I think this domestic politics that is happening right now, it's minimal for me. It's really all about the political dynasty and the political feud between the two biggest political families and strong political families in the country, which is the Duterte and the Marcoses.
Ella, very quickly, 30 seconds for final thoughts.
Yeah, for final talks, of course, the problem with the Philippines is that the political dynasties have become so obese that they have hijacked the interests of the Filipino people, and even the infighting within the Marcoses is symptomatic of having political families, members of political families fighting each other, to the detriment of the real interests of the people.
Okay, that will have to be the final word. I'd like to thank both of you so much for joining us on this edition of The Newsmakers and sharing your insight, and our viewers, of course, for being with us as well. Remember, you can follow us on social media, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey. We'll see you next time.